there was no job openings. But I had the idea, I'm going to pitch myself and share what I can do for the company. I reached out to the marketing director. I kind of shared some of the things that I've been working on and learning and said, is there any way that I can come and work with you? And she said yes. I can't believe that worked, but that really told me that I need to continue to just ask for what I want and shoot my shot for opportunities. What's the worst that someone can say?
Welcome to Marketing Happy Hour. I'm Cassie, consultant, podcaster, and your host. Every Thursday, you'll hear episodes packed with insights from brand leaders on an array of topics, from crafting effective marketing strategies and hitting career goals to building leadership skills and launching your own business. Inspired by those unfiltered happy hour combos with peers, this show is all about practical, empowering chats to support your professional journey. So grab your favorite drink and let's get to the episode.
Hey, how is it going? Oh my gosh, it's another solo episode time. I feel like I just did the last one, but I was encouraged to do more of these. I'm trying to get better at them. And so we're doing another one this week. I'm excited. How are you? How's it going? I feel like 2025 so far has been so crazy. I feel like I say this all the time, but I am just currently on this journey of learning and growing. Like 2025 is definitely a growth year for me. I am attending a lot of conferences, which is great, and just trying to expand my skill set and meet new people. And a part of expanding my skill set is doing more of these solo episodes, which I have shared are not always easy for me. I love chatting with other people. So this has been a stretch, but I'm excited for this one. I had a conversation at a conference I was at a couple weeks ago with a listener, and Robert, shout out to Robert. Robert shared that I need to do an episode kind of overviewing my story and sharing lessons learned along the way. And I thought it was a great idea because looking back, my story is far from linear. It has been all over the place. I have made some crazy moves. I've moved to New York City on a whim. I took on roles that I'm doing currently that are just crazy and insane and ridiculous. And I've learned so much throughout the way. And I think that when I was making those steps initially, it didn't really make complete sense to me why I was doing it. And I felt kind of crazy taking a step. But now looking back, I'm like, all of this stuff made so much sense. I was just thinking about what is my bigger, grander goal and what is this next step that I need to take to get there. And a lot of times those steps have been really insane, which I'll share. So I'm excited to kind of like introduce myself a little bit more to you. And again, just kind of take a few minutes to share my story. I have a lot of lessons I've learned along the way, things that I would love to pass on to you and see if it resonates and it's encouraging. So let's dive in. My journey began in college, as one does, as most people do. And I got my degree in PR. I did not really know, to be honest, what I wanted to do going into college. I loved to write. I loved being creative, and PR just kind of felt like the best fit for me. And throughout college, I did a ton of internships, and that was really the time where I got my feet wet and learned the different functions within PR and even into marketing. When I was in school, it was the time where schools were implementing the first social media classes. I cannot believe I'm saying that, but that is how old I am. But also how long ago I went to college. It's so crazy that that was such a new thing for schools. But I really started to gravitate towards social. Social was kind of hot at this time. This was about 2015, 2016 when I was nearing graduating school. And there was this really great brand in Tampa where I grew up in, and they were killing it on social media. They did some really fun stuff. It was a restaurant group. They were growing like crazy. And I said to myself, I'm like, I want to work for this business. There was no job openings, but I had the idea, I'm going to approach the marketing director and I'm going to pitch myself and share what I can do for the company and how much I love the brand. And I did just that. I reached out to the marketing director. I kind of shared some of the things that I've been working on and learning and said, is there any way that I can come and work with you and do something to contribute to the business? And she said yes. I can't believe that worked. But that really told me that throughout my career, I need to continue to just ask for what I want and shoot my shot for opportunities. And what's the worst that someone can say? So that's my first piece of advice, I guess, is just, go out there, speak up for what you want, tell people that you want to work for them, pitch yourself to them. But that also is way more effective when you have done your research on yourself. What are some things that you can speak to your experience or the projects that you've worked on, the campaigns that you've worked on, and also showing that the business itself. So doing your research there as well. I did so much in this role that I landed. It started as an internship. I promoted 3 times within the company. I literally wore so many hats. I did marketing, I did social media management, I planned events. I was an executive assistant at one point, which is quite a pivot, but it was helpful for just organizational skills. But experience in that first role out of college was everything. Being able to kind of dabble and see what I gravitate towards and what I don't enjoy was huge because I was learning, like, what is that next step? Again, what am I trying to do in the future? And what is the next possible step, even after this job, that I can take in order to reach my goals? Like I said, I gravitated towards social initially. It wasn't until I got offered another full-time social position that I was really able to deepen that skill set. So another restaurant group in Tampa offered me a job as a social media manager. So previously, again, I was doing these very diversified roles, but I was really able to narrow down into social, which I was really excited about. I will say when I left this first job, my boss was not happy, not the one that hired me, but the owner of the company. He said some really not nice things to me. And I was really young in my career again. I really took that stuff to heart and it really hit my confidence. And I will say that, humans are humans and things will come up. People will say things to you that is not true. A lot of times it is people projecting their anger or projecting something they're feeling about themselves. And I wish I would have known that back then, just not to take that to heart. People are people, things will happen. And so I think you really just in general, being a professional, have to develop this thick skin, and it takes time to develop that. But that is one thing looking back that I still think about to this day. And I try to share with younger professionals, like, hey, people are not nice all the time, but it is not usually a reflection of you. It's something else that they're dealing with. I want to mention too, before I move on to this next social role that I got, that in college, it's so important to meet as many people as you can, including your professors. My professors at USF in Florida were amazing. I still talk to a lot of them to this day, and they have opened up doors for opportunities for me. They've invited me back to speak to their current students. And so keep those people close because you never know what those relationships may lead to down the road. So this next role as a social media manager, I was in for a bit. And again, I was really deepening my social media skill set and I really fell in love with this function. But I was like, at this point, I've only gotten hospitality experience. I had worked for Disney as well during college, and I love hospitality. I love customer service. I love creating experiences for guests and people, but I was like, I know there's more that I probably need to get under my belt just as I'm learning what do I want to ultimately do. And so as one does, I go to New York for the first time ever and I fall in love with the city. And I come home and I'm sitting on my couch like a couple days after I got back from this trip. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should move to New York. Maybe I should get a job up there at an agency where I get to work with a number of different brands. And I think that would be good as a next step. And so I Googled social media agencies NYC, and one of the first one that popped up was Socialfly. And I applied to Socialfly and ended up getting an interview. This whole process was very blurry to me, but long story short, I ended up moving to New York City about 6 weeks later, which is insane. But the lesson I learned kind of through this is, again, know what you're looking to do, know what you're trying to achieve, and make sure you are aligning your decisions with that goal. The other thing I learned is take big risks, especially when you're young. When you have nothing tying you down, that is the time to move to a place like New York City or LA or Dallas or Austin or wherever it is, literally on a whim. It's okay. The other thing is nothing's permanent. So in my mind, I took on this role and I'm like so excited. I'm going to go work for a big agency in the city. I'm going to work with national and international brands. But at the end of the day, if I don't like it, if that opportunity is not for me, it's not permanent. And I can always step away and do something else, right? But I was determined to make that last as long as possible and to get the most that I could out of that opportunity. And so for me there during that time in New York, I really got to lead client calls and brainstorm on a number of different industries. And I worked with so many different clients. We launched products and built campaigns and did all of these really insane things. And I, again, really diversified my experience, and my love for social media deepened even further. We were a social first agency. So I learned even more about strategy and data and analytics. And I absolutely fell in love with strategy and analytics. And so, again, I'm making notes throughout this experience and saying to myself, okay, these are things that I'm really getting excited about. This is what I'm gravitating towards. And I need to pocket this so that when it goes to make the next decision, I can align that decision with my interests. So while I was there in New York City, I had a few people approach me for some different freelance work, copywriting, things like that. And I really started to get deeply connected with this idea of a client experience. How do you offer the service and build the best experience possible around that service so that the client is happy, they're meeting their goals, etc. And at one point, I was like, I really love this. Again, I'm like gravitating towards this new thing. I really love serving clients and being the person to kind of step in and help them reach their own goals. But the thing that I didn't really have at this point in my career was leadership experience. I'm like, in order to launch my own business, I need to figure out, how do I lead a business? How do I build a business? How do I run a business? I have no real leadership skills. I trained some people at my previous jobs, but that is something that I needed to get in order to eventually step out and start a business. So one day, I get a phone call from my previous employer, the second restaurant group I worked with. And she says, "Hey, your former boss is leaving the company. We need to hire a director of marketing." And first thought, I'm like, are you crazy? I don't have that much experience. You want me to lead this department and run the marketing efforts and PR efforts for 5+ restaurants? Wild. But I said yes, of course. So I was in New York for quite a while, and then it was time to move back to Florida and take this job. Again, another big risk, right? Leaving a place that I had established my roots for a while. I loved living in New York City. I loved my job. But again, keeping that goal and that vision in mind for me, this was the next best step that I had to take. And the opportunity was right in front of me. I didn't even have to ask for it. It came to me. And I think that's also just the power of relationships and not burning bridges. You know, when you step away from an experience, no matter how bad it is, don't trash the company publicly. Don't trash the company to your manager or the owner. Just politely step away. And you don't have to go back to that business, even if they call you. But again, leaving that door open to whatever the potential next step, or even what if they introduce you to someone that could lead to that next opportunity. And so that's exactly a testament of this, is that door was open and I stepped into it. So I moved back to Florida at this point, and I was in this position for a while. Again, led the PR and marketing campaigns. We got placements in Forbes and all of these amazing publications. And I practiced my photography skills and got to do a lot of different things. But ultimately, I'm learning, how do I lead? How do I build out projects and campaigns and organize them and work with a team? And so I was there for a bit. The department that I was working in ended up getting cut down quite a bit due to budget. This was in 2019. My client load on the side was becoming a lot. It was a lot to manage on the side of a full-time job. And so in October of 2019, I said, I think this is this is something that I've been working towards. I said I wanted to get experience for a bit. I think now is the time to leave my full-time job, my corporate role, and start my own thing, like really dive into it. So I did. another big, huge risk. It was terrifying. My boss essentially was like, good luck, like, hope it works out for you. Like, she was very skeptical. Um, and so I had enough income again to really supplement what my income in the full time job was. And it was time. But besides that, I was still starting from scratch. I had to meet new people and rebrand myself in this world of owning a business. People knew me as the girl that did marketing for restaurant groups and that lived in New York. People didn't know me as a business owner. And so that also took time and patience to kind of build that mindset and talk about that experience, et cetera. So that takes me to kind of the scope of today / the last 5 years of running my business and doing different projects here and there, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But I think kind of the overall lesson here of just my first several years of my career is I really had to take time to learn what I liked and disliked and leaning into those interests and taking that next step in my career. And that stuff takes time and it takes diligence, and that stuff changes, at least for me. Like, I personally, I don't know how you feel, but I get super burnt out if I'm doing the same thing the same way for a long time. And so I had to learn ways to make things fun and creative and different, and learning what I thrive around. I thrive around collaboration and being with people in person and doing in-person events and really seeing people get excited about a product or a service in person. So again, those are things that I had to pocket and just note so that as I'm building offerings and things in the future, that's something I want to make sure I'm infusing into those next steps. I also will say something that I implemented a few years ago is I take myself on a mini retreat once a year. So it's just me. It's typically a staycation at the beach or in Orlando, close to where I live. And I will book a hotel and I will lock myself in the hotel room or sit by the pool. And my main focus and goal of that 2 days or however long it is to really reflect and think about what I've been working on in the past. And again, note, are there things that I really don't enjoy anymore? Are there things that I'm really getting excited about? And always having kind of a running list of that stuff, because you may be in the corporate space, for example, and having that self-awareness and that confidence of the things that really excite you are really, really important when it goes to the next job search and knowing what you should be aligning your interests with role-wise. And so that's something I want to encourage you. It does not have to be as grand as going out to, a couple day hotel stay, but, how can you kind of set that meeting with yourself occasionally and reassess all of that? So in 2021, as you know, you're listening to the Marketing Happy Hour podcast, but in 2021, I launched Marketing Happy Hour along my friend Erica. And our goal was really to just share our learnings and strategies that we're testing with other marketers. And this podcast came out of nowhere. I was so shy growing up. Like, you could not get me to talk in front of people at all. Like, that was just not happening. So to now see what I'm doing for a living is pretty hilarious. But I learned that I really got fired up by teaching and sharing value with other people. So again, this has been an outlet for me to be able to do just that, to really pass on what I'm learning and highlight these guests that are able to pass on what they're learning as well. And it's been such an amazing vehicle for relationship building and myself learning. Like, I am learning stuff from our guests every single day. And so I think it's just showcasing the value and what we can do outside of our 9 to 5s, and just making sure we're always surrounding ourselves with people who are doing amazing things out in the world, and talking to them and hearing their stories and showing interest in what they're doing and learning from them first and foremost. I think this has also taught me too that the content that you're building for yourself is a really big resume builder. And so I encourage you, if you post to social yourself, or if you have your own podcast, know that that can be used in the job hunt or to land different opportunities in the future. And so make sure that you are logging this stuff that you're doing on your side as a side hustle, and use it in your portfolio. In 2023, so fast forward a couple years, the Discover Universal podcast opportunity came across my desk. This was one of those things, again, where I saw this opportunity pop up, and I have a deep love for theme parks and experiences. And I live in Central Florida. I grew up here. So it's been a big part of my life for a long time and worked for Disney in the past, as I mentioned. And so when this opportunity came through, I, again, am like, this is something where I can build my skill set as a podcaster. It's a marketing function. And so I can learn a lot there as well. And so I shot my shot. Once again, I had to submit a audition tape and go through this intense audition process and ended up landing the role, which I'm so incredibly grateful for. It's been amazing. But this has again just become such a huge vehicle for relationship building and meeting new people, but also learning how to use podcasting as a marketing channel on such a grand scale. So we are opening a new theme park next month, and I have gotten to learn, how are we going to talk about this? How are we targeting guests with this kind of messaging? What is the story that we're telling? And so, yes, this has been a huge opportunity for me and something that I selfishly, as just a personal interest, have loved to do. But it's also building my skill set. And so, again, I know I already kind of mentioned this, but just being open to these weird different opportunities that come up and not being afraid to say yes and just see what happens and building out your skill set. And this is definitely been a very wild, different experience that I would have never expected to come up for me, but it has been so huge for me personally and professionally. And I have just gotten so much joy out of it. And I'm learning so much because, again, I haven't, I worked with a lot of massive brands in New York, but the bigger corporate scale isn't something I have tapped into as much. And so this has been my opportunity to do that. So again, slowly collecting these dots and just learning what I'm into and building my skill set and taking big risks and doing things that are really scary and figuring it out along the way has been kind of my philosophy. Each step has been so incredibly crazy, and I love telling my story, not because it has been very rewarding and I'm very grateful for all the opportunities that I have received, but I love telling my story because it's an encouragement that, like, again, no career has to look a certain way. It's really up to you and whatever you're looking to do. And I just again encourage you, please take on things that seem a little bit outside of your zone. Learn about different departments, learn about different industries, read, listen to podcasts, because all of that is going to contribute to the marketer and the professional that you are becoming. And so that's the biggest thing that I would say. And just constantly reassess, pay attention again. What are you leaning into? What are you excited about? What are you not excited about? What are the types of leaders that you want to work for and the leaders you don't want to work for? And make sure you are paying attention to all of that. I am now 5 years in to being self-employed, and there's a lot of pros and cons. If you're interested in chatting more just about what that process is, feel free to shoot me an email. But it's been a wild ride. There's a lot of great things about it. I love the flexibility. I love being able to say yes to opportunities like working with Universal Studios, for example, and do stuff like that. But I'm always reassessing, what is next? Nothing is permanent, as I said earlier in this conversation. And so this is a big reflection year for me. I am assessing all of these dots I've collected, all of these opportunities I've had in the past, and asking myself, what's next? And I don't really have an answer to that question right now. And that's okay. I think for a while it wasn't okay to me, and I'm still getting warmed up to that idea that I'm not quite sure, but I think it's okay to have this time of just sitting in the unknown and not quite knowing, what that next step looks like. And so this year for me is all about being flexible and just learning what I can do in the future to get to my ultimate goals. And I have a vague idea of what that looks like, but I'm still refining that as well. A few tips I want to leave you with here today and just reiterate some of the things I already mentioned. But number one, relationships are everything. I say this all the time. If you have met me before, I talk about this, but I truly cannot express to you how important this is. Most of my opportunities have come from relationships. Not every relationship is going to lead to something either, and that's okay. So be open-minded and treat people as human beings and truly try to get to know people and learn from people. And that may lead to something down the road. You really never know, but it has been one of the biggest assets for me in growth and opportunity. The other thing that I'm trying to learn too, that I want to also encourage you in, is it's okay to really love work and learning, but there's also more to life than that. And so just discovering who you are as a human being outside of work. What do you get excited about? Are there things that you can fill outside of your profession, relationships, family, friends, your faith, whatever it is? Are there hobbies that you could get to fill up your energy and your time? This year, I started making sourdough and doing a lot of Duolingo, and it's been amazing. I absolutely love it. It's so fun to have things that are like new to learn for the first time again. It's been so long. And so find whatever that is that can kind of like re-energize you outside of work. The other thing I'll say is that marketing is very heavily self-taught and experience-based. Yes, education is key. It's huge. It's very important, but you have to also learn by doing. And so people ask me all the time just about, I'm early on in my experience, what do I do? And it's more experience. Like, I hate to say it, but that is how you learn and grow and really set this firm foundation for yourself career-wise. And so the more experience that you can take on, even outside of your role, the more learning you can do outside of your role, a lot of that stuff is up to you to grow and develop into the professional that you want to be. Another thing I'll say too is give yourself grace to test and learn. Again, make those big risks, but not everything's going to work out, and that's okay. Nothing has to be permanent. And so just don't be afraid to quote unquote fail. I don't want to use that word too heavily, but failure is really important because you learn what doesn't work and what you can take away from that. And so give yourself grace for those ups and downs. The last thing I'll say too is speak up for the opportunities that you want. Again, even if you don't see a job listed, don't be afraid to pitch yourself to a company and tell them how you would help that company and why you would help that company. Come back with data, with research, show up for those opportunities, share how you can serve the business. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there because people a lot of times will not think of you for opportunities until you share what you can actually do and express that interest to them. So that's so incredibly important. Again, this has been a very brief overview of my career. If you have any specific questions or want to chat through anything I shared in depth, please feel free to reach out to me on social media or via email. I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you. I really appreciate you listening to this solo episode. If you made it to the very end, thank you so much. And would love to hear what you want to know next, just from me directly or even from any of our guests. If there's industries you want to hear from, I would love to collect your feedback and always appreciate it. And as always, join the email list, send out emails every Thursday and just go a little bit deeper on some of these topics that I'm specifically thinking about. Again, really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for listening as always, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, I would love your feedback. And if you're ready to take things to the next level, sign up for my weekly newsletter in the show notes. You'll get weekly career and marketing insights straight to your inbox. And if you have an idea for a future Marketing Happy Hour episode, shoot me an email, hello@marketinghappyhr.com. Thank you again, and I'll see you next Thursday.